Welcome back to another card making video. This is Jennifer McGuire and I thank you for stopping by. So today I'm going to have some more fun with my gel press. However, I'm keeping it very simple and using basic card making and crafting supplies with it. So we're going to use ink, stamps, stencils, and die cuts. We're going to do a lot of layering of inks, and I'll show you a key ink that I find is great to use when building up layers. Now, I'm not a pro with gel press, but I've been having fun making it work with the supplies I have, and I will link to my beginner video up here on the top right in case you missed that. This is just another video building on the ideas of using gel press for card making. I will first start by sharing several different techniques for creating layered backgrounds, and then we'll take those backgrounds and turn them into cards. Now, normally when I use my gel press, I like to put it on something so I can rotate it easily. If you prefer, you could just put it on your desk and it'll stick there and you can use it as much as you want. This is the gel press here. I have the 5x7, but any size gel press would work for these techniques. Now, as I mentioned, I usually put it right on top of the MISTI, and then I'll ink it up and I'll lay my paper onto it after I've inked it. Well, today I wanted to show you a different option. You can actually put it inside of your stamping tool. So I took the pad out from the inside of my MISTI and I'm attaching it to the door. I kind of put it close to the door's edge. Here I have it in the center, but I end up moving it. So I put it about an inch from the edge of the door. So you'll see me move it here. Now this is just going to allow me to get better control over where I use my stamps and stencils and lining things up. I kind of have a control issue. I like to kind of control my techniques, and this is one way to do it. If you do not have a stamping tool, stay tuned. In this video, I will show you another way that you can easily line things up when using your gel press. So I'll show that along the way too. Keep in mind the gel press is thicker than the MISTI, so the door doesn't close completely. Puts a little pressure on the hinges, but I found it had no problem using it this way. Next, you'll need a brayer, and lately I've been playing around with different types of brayers, and I've learned that they make a big difference in how the ink applies to your gel press or to your paper. And this is a personal preference. Everybody uses a different medium, a different ink, a different paint, whatever, and it really depends on what you want. But I've found with the techniques that I do and how I use my gel press that it's better to have a medium rubber or a soft rubber, not a hard rubber brayer. I've had success with the Speedball soft rubber brayer, but I have more success with these because they also work with wet inks when I use that with my gel press, which I'll share in a future video. I also like that these have feet they can stand on when you're not using them, and also you can take the rolling part off to quickly clean it, which is a huge perk. Now, before you go and buy any new brayers, if you have one in your drawer from a long time ago, definitely try it. It may work great for what you're doing. I also have a stack of white cardstock. I cut these to 5.5 by 8.5 so that they're ready to go. Any white cardstock will work, or you could use colored cardstock if you prefer. There are many different paints and sprays and inks that you can use on your gel press. I always choose to use my Tim Holtz Distress Oxide ink because I feel like most people who watch my videos who are card makers like me have inks on hand, so I feel it's best to demonstrate with those because you're more likely to have them. The reason I choose to use Distress Oxide inks is I found great success with them on my gel press, but you can definitely try this with Distress ink, hybrid inks, or dye inks, or even pigment inks. So try what you have, but I find great success with Oxide inks if you have those. So I just quickly pressed different colors of Distress Oxide ink onto my gel press. Then I use my brayer to kind of go back and forth randomly. That kind of works the colors together but still leaves some marks. So we don't have this perfect smooth background. We're looking for a background with lots of interest. And I love the result of doing that. You could definitely stop here, but I wanted to show you in this video ways to build up layers, how to use your gel press with other tools you have in order to build up the look of dimension and a lot of interest on your background. So here I went back and I added more of the same colors. I'm using some peacock feathers, blueprint sketch, and I believe I used a little seedless preserves. I inked up my gel press. Now I'm taking my stencil and instead of laying it onto the gel press, I'm laying it on top of my paper and then pressing down. If you don't have a stamping tool like this, you would just have your gel press laying on your table, ink up your gel press, lay your stencil on it, and then the paper on that. But this way I can kind of aim my stencil in different areas. One of the advantages of using a stamping positioner like this in order to line up your stencils. I still had some ink left over on my gel press, so I decided just to press it on there. It's very subtle, but you can see how we're starting to build up some layers. Now I've cleaned off my gel press, and this time I'm putting down some speckled egg, which is a lighter color. Remember, I also have ink on my brayer, so it's going to mix some of that color in there still. And now I'll put down my stencil, but offset it. See how I can set it in a different position from before? Then press this down. Now, because Distress Oxide inks have like a pigment property to them, a little bit of being opaque, you can see that color on top of the other dark colors. So again, we're just building up those layers. Okay, so now I'm going to clean off my gel press really well because this time I want to add a white pigment ink. You can use any white pigment ink you want. I'm really liking the Shark Tooth Fusion white pigment ink from Ink on 3. I think it's out of stock in most places, but I bet it'll be back soon. But any white pigment ink will work. I chose this one because I've been experimenting with it and I find it's nice and juicy. Now I'm taking the stencil, I'm flipping it over so the clean side is up, and I'm pressing that white pigment ink that I put on the gel press down over the stencil. And look at that. I just love that white pigment ink added on top of everything else. You just want to be careful to make sure your gel press is clean before putting that white pigment ink down so you don't contaminate it. To finish this background off, I found a paint splatter background stamp in my stash, and I'm stamping this with the white pigment ink. So I did a few layers of this stencil, and now I'm doing some stamping on top. And I am crazy about all the different layers we have built up here. So this would have been very hard to achieve without a gel press. You could have done lots of ink blending and layering, but it was very easy to do using the gel press. And you have all that color variation. And remember, you could have done this with your gel press on your work surface and ink it up and lay everything on top of it. I just found that using the stamping tool is really easy. Okay, so now let's do another example. This time I'm starting with the Kitsch Flamingo and Scattered Straw ink. You can see I'm just putting a little bit down, not really covering the whole thing. Now, I like to start with lighter inks first so that I can build up to darker inks. Notice I still have the white pigment ink from before. I'm just going to keep it on there and mix it in there. That way it softens it even more. Again, I just kind of go back and forth in different directions so we get those little marks and it kind of creates a fabric-like look in the background. So there you can see it's very soft because remember there was white pigment ink on my brayer. I like starting soft so we can build it up. This is the new Simon Says Stamp Botanical Split Background. It's a background stamp that actually splits apart so you can ink up each part a different color very easily, but I'm keeping it all together here. I've laid it into my MISTI face up. We're going to actually stamp onto the gel press first. So I'm inking up my gel press with the same colors as before. I'm doing the Kitsch Flamingo and the Scattered Straws. If you want to, you could add some darker colors in, but I'm starting out light. Now I'm going back and forth with my brayer. You can clean it each time, but I find a lot of times there's no need. Okay, so I'm pressing that onto my stamp. And now I'll take the gel press and press onto my paper. This will be very subtle, very, very subtle. Because remember, we're using very light inks. But that's the key to building up those layers. Let's use this one again. I rotated it and moved it a bit. This time we're going to make it stand out more. I'm inking up my gel press this time with the Kitsch Flamingo, some more Scattered Straw, just like I've been doing, kind of randomly placing it onto the gel press and trying not to contaminate one ink pad with the other color. This time I'm adding ink to my stamp too, so it'll stand out more. I'm using Picked Raspberry, which is a nice bright pink. I'll use my brayer to work those colors together over on my gel press, and then I will kiss the stamp onto the gel press. So I'm just putting it into the stamping tool and pressing down. Be careful not to put too much pressure. You don't want to break the hinges on your MISTI, but I didn't have any problems. Then I remove the stamp and I press the gel press back onto my paper again. And look at this fun result. Now, if I would have stamped, I would have gotten a really bold image, but by using the gel press, you get this ghost-like image, again, building those layers. Okay, now I'm going to stamp directly onto the background. So I took out the gel press, and I just have my background stamp in my MISTI as I normally would. I'm inking up the stamp with picked raspberry and stamping that on top. Beautiful, beautiful image. But I want to step it up even more, and that's where that white pigment ink comes in. Adding a layer of either stenciling or stamping with white pigment ink on top of your gel press background really makes a big difference. I cleaned my stamp really well, rotated it in the MISTI, and now I'm stamping it with the white ink. And check this out when I'm done. I think this is one of the coolest backgrounds because of all the layering that you have going on. So this is a great way to create a background that can be the focal point of your card. So much fun to create. And you don't have to put much else on the card. You can see how that white kind of catches the light, but you can still see our first soft layers, the pink layer, and then the white on top. Okay, let's move on to another background. In this case, I incorporated die cuts to create the layering. So I'm using this new die set from Simon Says Stamp. It's the Curvy A2 Scallop Frame die set. Now I'll be using this to create a shaped card later, but here I am using the frame die to create scallop borders. So I die cut it once, then I'm offsetting the die. See there right on the edge? I offset it a bit and ran it through again, and I get a scallop border. And I'll continue to do this a few times to create scallop border pieces that I can use along with my gel press. Now, if you have border dies or other things, you could use those, but I thought this was a way to extend the life of this frame die set by creating borders. This time I'm starting with my gel press with some white pigment ink on it. See the white pigment ink there? Then I'll add some brighter colors. This is a great way to make sure that first layer is soft by putting some white pigment ink on it. So I added peacock feathers and mermaid lagoon. But watch, the white mixes with it and makes it lighter. So if you don't have light colors of ink, don't worry, use that white pigment ink with it. You could probably even use a little bit of white acrylic paint, but I don't have any and need to buy some. Okay, so I press that down and check it out. Such a beautiful soft look with those bold colors because we put that white pigment ink down. Just remember, if you are putting white pigment ink onto your gel press, to make sure it's clean first so you can keep your white ink pad clean. Now I'm laying those die cut scallop borders right along our background. I just wanted it to look a little bit like water in the background, so I'm just randomly laying them around. Now I'm inking up my gel press, this time with bold colors. I've got peacock feathers, mermaid lagoon, and a little bit of chipped sapphire. I'll use my brayer to move those colors around randomly so we have lots of texture or the look of texture on there, and then press it down over those die cuts. And check it out, you can see the lighter area in the waves where we didn't add the ink just now. So now I'm taking those same border die cuts and moving them into a different position. I'll ink up my gel press again. This time I just put a little bit of peacock feathers, not much else, and press that on top. So I'm building these waves in the background. This time I'll clean my gel press really well. I use a baby wipe and then a dry cloth, and I'll cover it with a good amount of white pigment ink. I'll still have a little blue ink on my brayer, that's okay. And I will take those little die cut borders and lay them down once again in a different spot. And this time we'll press down, and this will kind of create a softer look on top. But each of these layers adds to those waves in the background. So there, check that out. Such a fun look. And I will keep all those wave die cuts to add back onto the card later for some dimensions. So you can use those too. Now I heat set that a little bit so that that white pigment ink will dry. And now I'm doing a little bit of water splatter. I'm using my Tim Holtz sprayer, and then I'll end up flicking some water on too. Now remember, I just put white pigment ink over most of this. So you won't see a huge amount of reaction from the water, but in the places where the Distress Oxide ink is exposed, you will get that little water splatter look, and it just adds to that ocean feel. All of my examples so far, I showed how I like to use my gel press inside of my stamping tool. I wanted to show you again that the gel press is thick so the stamping tool doesn't close completely. I don't think it puts much pressure on the hinges, but I just wanted to let you know that so you can see how it's open a bit, but it still works fine. So if you don't want to use your stamping tool or you don't have one, here's another way you can easily use your gel press as a stamp. Just put it onto one of your die cut plates. So this is my Spellbinders clear die cut plate for my die cutting machine. I just put my gel press on it and I'm going to use it as a stamp. Works wonderfully. Okay, so let's do a few examples this way. I'm starting with the clean gel press on my cutting plate. I put on white pigment ink first, and then I put on some Kitsch Flamingo, and then some shaded lilac. I'll move that color around a bit, and now I'll just pick this up like a stamp and press it down. You could instead put your paper onto the gel press, but I thought this worked really well. Next, I have my Simon Says Stamp medium dot stencil. I thought I'd add dot pattern to this. So I'm putting down more of the same colors, but skipping the white this time. And I added a little bit of blueprint sketch. Move that around, pick it up, place it down, press firmly. You can even flip it back over, it sticks to it. And press to make sure you get into the nooks and crannies of the stencil. And there we have a polka dot background. I'll go ahead and press that down again since there's still a little ink on it, and it just builds up those layers. One advantage of using a clear cutting plate with your gel press is you can pick it up like a stamp, look through it, and line it up with what you've done. Okay, this time I inked up my background stamp with white pigment ink and stamped that on top. I just used my brayer to press down on that to make sure I get even coverage, and look at that. Such beautiful layering going on. All right, let's add another layer. This is an older Simon Says Stamp leaf cluster stencil. I don't know if they have it anymore, but they have a leaf cluster die, and you can die cut it and use the die cut here. You'll see that die later. This time I'm adding in some darker colors. I added blueprint sketch and seedless preserves. Move all that color around and press that down. Really make sure you get into those nooks and crannies. This is a great way to clean off your excess ink if you don't want it. And look at that, building up all those layers. I really think that adding white pigment ink in there with a stamp like I did here or over a stencil really kind of makes it pop. It gives this kind of halo ghost-like look that really helps when you're building up those layers. Okay, I have one more background for you, and this time I'm adding in the mask stencils that are really popular right now. I have the Simon Says Stamp circle mask stencils. There's a bunch of different masks of different size circles, and I took 3 out, and I thought those would be fun to use on my gel press. So I'm starting with light ink. I used Twisted Citron Speckled Egg. Move that ink around and press that down onto my white cardstock, just like you've seen me do millions of times to start the color. Now I'm taking the large circle mask and put that down. I add a little peacock feathers, a little more Twisted Citron, move that around and press it down. So basically I'm getting a darker circle there, right towards the middle. Now I'm planning to cut that off, so don't worry if that part of that circle is cut off there. Now I'm going to the next size smaller circle stencil, and I'm holding that there. See how by using laying your paper and stencil on the table and then pressing your gel press onto it, you can line up stencils easily. I was able to line up these circle stencils. So I added more color. Now the new smallest circle stencil, press that down, and we just have these fun buildup of colors in a circle. Now I have the new Simon Says Stamp Boho Spring Stencil. They had a boho stencil out before, and I used it so much, I was excited to see the spring version. Lined it up to be centered up with what we've done already. This time I put down white pigment ink, used the ink still on my brayer, move that around, and check it out, building up that color. Now I wanted to add on to that white pigment ink some shimmer. So I took that all out, lined the stencil back up with where I just had it, so it's where the white pigment ink is, and I'm spraying over it with my Sukaneko Shimmer Spritz. You could use anything here. Now what this will do is react a little bit with the oxide ink underneath, and it'll brighten that white, and it'll make that area shiny. It's kind of hard to see in the video, but I promise you, all of that open stencil area there has a sparkle to it that's just beautiful in real life. And I kept the colors kind of soft on this so that it would be a soft background with that bit of sparkle. Okay, now that we've done a bunch of different layered backgrounds, let's go ahead and turn these into cards. And I'm going to show you parts and pieces of it along the way, but most of them are very simple. Now this is the one we did with the wave borders that we created. Notice there's a little bit of shiny wave along them too. What I did is I used some aqua holographic cardstock. So it's got a little bit of an aqua color to it. And I die cut more of those scallop borders, just like before. And I am gluing them behind our inked scallop borders offset a bit, so that that little bit of that shiny cardstock will peek out. I'm loving holographic cardstock. This aqua version is really pretty, and it just gives a little pop of shine in our background. Now you can see I have all of my little inked borders here that we used earlier. I did die cut an additional white scallop border and glued it behind it so it has dimension. I like to build up that dimension, but you could definitely do one layer thick if you prefer. Okay, so I created all of my little scallop borders here with the holographic cardstock peeking out, and I'm gluing them onto our background. This just adds dimension to all of the layering that we've already done. So remember, if you use die cut pieces when you're doing your gel press backgrounds, you can use those as accents on your card or save them for other cards. Okay, after I have my borders glued down, I'm trimming off the excess, and then I will add this onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. The rest of the card is very simple. I stamped and colored and die cut that cute little narwhal. I think he's adorable. Added that to the background along with the sentiment. You can see all the shine from that holographic cardstock peeking out and from these little holographic gems that I added to it too. Anything to add a little bit of sparkle. I even added black gems for the eyes so they'd stand out more. Now that cute image is from this new Simon Says Stamp CZ Design Narwhal Friend stamp set. Look at all those adorable images. I also really like that one that says Hello Friend. There are also coordinating dies available. Now the Hello is from this Simon Says Stamp Chunky Slimline Scalloped Rectangle die set. Remember earlier I used the A2 size of this, the regular card size. These are longer for slimline cards, but it includes that Hello die. And that's what I used for the sentiment on here. Right above the hello, it does have white heat embossed, swimming by to say, and that's from the stamp set. Now I'm going to use that Slimline scallop border die set on this next card. It's a traditional card size, but I wanted to show you can use your Slimline dies on regular cards. And this uses that dotted background that I like so much. I created that cute little birdhouse and bird using the new Simon Says Stamp Bitty Birdhouse die set. This is a great small die set that's really easy to assemble to create a little birdhouse. And I also used the Memory Box Whittle bird die set. Now these are fun to assemble. I'm a big fan of birds and birdhouses, and you could use this for spring, winter, whatever you want. This has a winter feel to it. I also used the Simon Says Stamp Detail Petal Plate die. This creates a pierced pattern, and I did that with white cardstock and added it to a white note card. That's 4 1/4 by 5.5. Next, I'm using one of those slim line scallop frames and cutting from our inked background. I thought it would be fun to have that coming down the center of the card. It's so much more interesting than just cutting a rectangle, and I'll have leftover inked paper for another card. So I just assembled all my die cuts on the front of our note card. The thank you die set is included in that Slimline scallop frame die set that I showed you earlier that also has the hello. My die cuts are stacked. They're 2 or 3 die cuts thick, so I just die cut it 3 times, glued them together, just so they would stand out against that busy background. I also added a holographic heart right at the top of the birdhouse. I really want to go back and make a bunch of different colors of layered gel press backgrounds and then make them all into this card design. By changing the colors or the stencils you use, you'll get a different feel on each one. You can make ones for all seasons. This is a great basic design that works with a lot of your inky backgrounds. Okay, let's move on to the pink and purple one that we did with that large cluster leaf stencil. On this, I used the large cluster leaf die and detail leaf cluster die that Simon Says Stamp has. I like that they have many that are the same size that you can layer on top of each other. So you can see the one in the middle is solid. I die cut that from vellum. You can see the die cut over on the left. Then the die on the right is an outline of it. I die cut that from white cardstock that I put adhesive on the back of first. So now I have this intricate white die cut with adhesive already on it, and I'll lay that right on top of our vellum. It gives us a die cut that looks like it's made of vellum with an outline of white cardstock. I thought that would be a nice subtle die cut to put on top of our card because it wouldn't distract from the background. We'll only use part of it so we don't cover up too much. On this, I also used the new Simon Says Stamp CZ Design Welcome Stamp Set and the coordinating die set. I encourage you to take a closer look at some of the hilarious sentiments in this stamp set. There are many ways you can build up different greetings that are great, and there are those coordinating dies that cut out the words nicely. Well, what I decided to use is "You Are Welcome to Lean on Me," and I stamped those with a dark purple ink just so it wouldn't stand out too much against that background. You can see I only used part of my die cut leaf because I didn't want to cover up the entire background, and then I added a bunch of pink and purple pearls. So lots of that background showing. It has this softness to it, and it almost looks like you could touch it and it would be soft. That's one of the fun looks about using your Distress Oxide inks and your white pigment ink with your gel press. Speaking of a look of soft texture, this next background really offers that, so I kept the card very simple. I'm a big fan of birds, as I mentioned, and I'm very excited about the new Simon Says Stamp Spring Bird stamp set. I think the reason I like birds is they're pretty easy to color. You can use them all year round, and they are just something you can use for a lot of occasions. And I like these because they look very easy to color, and they could be done to have a realistic look or a more graphic look. Well, I stamped a bird and a branch, colored it and die cut it, nothing fancy, and added that onto my card. Now look closely at those flowers in the background. It's hard to see, but they sparkle and it looks like it's flocked. But that's just all those layers of gel press that we did. It is so beautiful in real life. This is definitely, I think, the prettiest, like I want to touch it background of all of them. I also stamped Hello Spring and added a few pearls to the background too. I definitely want to make more like this too. I think that's one of the bad things about gel press is you want to keep going and making more. It gets a little addictive. Okay, now let's do that bright pink and yellow background that we created. This one, I wanted the focal point to be that background, so I only used white die cuts with it and a black sentiment. Now I used the A2 scallop frame die that I showed you earlier to cut from white cardstock to make the front of our card. I added some little butterflies from the Poppy Stamps Fern Daisy pop-up easel die set that I used in my last video. I'll link to that video on the top right. All of that die cutting's done in white. I trimmed down the background, added it to the center, and then I used the Simon Says Stamp Slimline Beautiful stamp set and die to add my sentiment. So now this capital B Beautiful die set here, I did the shadow in white, then I did the word beautiful in black glossy cardstock, and then I stamped hello above it. I like that these are big sentiments that you can use on slimline cards, regular cards, or 5x7. So that is my card front. Now it's time to make the note card shaped. This is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding. I'm using the same die but lining it up so that my die hangs off a little bit from the folded edge. So it sticks off the folded edge a little bit, and I'm taping it there. I'll then run it through my die cut machine. The reason I have the die hanging off the folded edge a bit is that it'll keep it connected up there and we'll have a shaped note card. So here I'll just remove all the edges and check it out. We have a shaped hinged card. Now we can glue that card front onto it. I love creating shaped cards, and this is one easy way to do it, especially with any kind of fancy frame dies such as this one. This will stand up nicely, and it's a fun alternative from doing just a regular rectangle card. I think a design like this, where it is pretty basic, just the sentiment, a few accents, and lots of white cardstock, is a great way to show off any of your gel press backgrounds that you're really happy with. This one has that look of the white that shows up if you tilt it in different ways in the light. And it looks like, again, one of those backgrounds you want to touch because it looks like it has a softness to it. So those are some of the ways that I like to use a gel press. Remember, I am not an expert at the gel press. I'm just finding ways that I like to use it with my card making and the supplies that I have. I hope it inspires you because I really feel like making the investment in an inexpensive gel press that can be used over and over again with supplies you have is a great way to open the door to many new techniques. Now, if you are interested in anything I used here, I do link them below. You can also check my blog up here on the top right. In the middle are some related videos, including my playlist of gel press videos. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be back very, very soon with another video.